Hello, hello, hello. How's it going out there, friends? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be where you are out there. Welcome back to the live stream. My name is CSharpFritz, and today is October 4th, 2021, and this is the C Sharp with CSharpFritz show. We're going to be answering a lot of questions that have come in from folks like you over the past few weeks, over the past few months of this stream that are proper for folks that are learning about C Sharp. They're taking their first steps learning the programming language. We've got some great samples that are already built that I have out there available for us that we're going to walk through, we're going to discuss. And discuss doesn't mean just we're going to listen to Fritz talk about them. No. This is your opportunity to ask questions, and we're going to go through and address them. There's going to be other folks in chat that can help you out, and we'll adapt the samples on the fly. You're going to be able to run all the samples live in your browser because we're using .NET interactive notebooks. You can open these using Visual Studio Code, using GitHub code spaces, and they will all run live for you in your browser or on whatever machine you might be using. Now, before I go and say hello to all of our friends, I can see them in the chat room there. My goodness, lots of great friends in the chat room already. But I want to let you know that October is a special month here. There's all kinds of, so-and-so month and this, that, and the other theme months out there that folks observe. Well, here in my channel, in this space, October is Ubuntober. All month long, we're going to be celebrating Ubuntober. We're going to be programming on Ubuntu Linux. No Windows here. We're going to be using all Ubuntu Linux. We're going to be programming with .NET on Linux. Visual Studio Code we'll be using. We might use a little bit of Vim, whole lot of command line, but we're going to show you, we're going to work with you and show you just how great it is to be a .NET developer on Linux. And today's no different. We're going to be answering your questions. You might be writing code C# code on a Mac or on a Windows machine, but we're going to answer them on Linux, and you're going to see just how good it is to be a .NET developer on Linux. All right, enough about me. Enough about me talking. What are you saying? How you doing there, chat room? Let's say hello to folks over there in the chat room. I saw some people here way earlier. Wolfkin is here from Germany. Moises is here from Sao Paulo. I'm looking at my other screen here. Paul Watts from Tasmania. Oh my goodness, it's awfully late there. Midnight. Nitro Evil, good to see you. Java Love, hello, hello. D'Angelo Stewart, dialing in from Wisconsin, 8 a.m. there. How you doing there, Java Love, with the Minecraft emotes? John Thiessen from Arizona says, thanks for these early Monday shows. Gets the week started on the right track. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate the kind words. And I hope if you're here in the States, if you're just waking up, I hope you have a fantastic a little bit of breakfast and developer chatter. Maybe you're listening on your phone as you're driving to work. Keep your eye on the road, hands on the steering wheel. And all of this is recorded and available afterwards over on the YouTube channel. And if you're in Europe, like it looks like Mo is, it's 3 p.m. where Mo is. Surly Dev, good to see you over on Twitch. Nick Boyles, hello, hello. Swedish National Cinnamon Roll Day, I saw that. Suduki is here, good morning to you. Miguel, hello world. You like the cap? Thank you so much. Let's see here. Sergio in Cuba, good vibes to you. Juan Sterla in Argentina. Hacktober, that's a different thing. We want to make sure that we show a little bit of .NET with Ubuntu. Paul with a question about influence on C# from F# over the last few versions. Definitely, C# has taken some functional features that folks have enjoyed, that folks enjoy using, and have made them more productive. And I think you're going to see, I think as you look at the history of programming languages, there's a lot of influence that between various programming languages. They cross-pollinate, and you see C# influences now in JavaScript. You're going to start to see F# influences in Python. And as some of those language designers work more closely together, you're going to see some really cool things happening out there for everybody. It means everybody gets to be more productive. Hey, Chris Jones, good to see you. Sebastian Olaf is here from Singapore. Woo! It's a late evening for you. Welcome. Tinkerfu from Switzerland. Ken is here from Toronto. Sudipta from India. Great to see everybody. The Kubuntu Focus Linux laptop folks are here. Hello to you in Montreal. We're going to be using a Kubuntu Linux laptop in just a little bit. The binary developer is here. I mentioned Suduki. Good to see you. She's one of our MVP friends. Miguel Quaslot, you like the cap? I get these made. You can go out to the it's the .NET Swag repository on GitHub. All the .NET Foundation projects have logos out there that you are free to download, turn into stickers, put them on t-shirts. They just ask that you don't sell them, but you can certainly have those made so you can wear them and share them. Let me see. Is it the same name on YouTube? No. On YouTube, we are on the .NET channel. Let me see here. Yeah, there we go. What does AMA mean? AMA is short for Ask Me Anything. And I have a bunch of questions already queued up that we're going to answer, and happy to take your questions along the way. Yeah, AMA, Ask Me Anything. And I don't think I changed the Visual Studio. Oh, no, I did. There we go. It's the channel name is right there. Lakshay, hello to you. Hem in Vietnam. Lakshay is from New Zealand. Oh my goodness. Welcome in. That is a late night evening for you. Sibonella from South Africa. Thank you. And Suduki with the link to the .NET Swag repository. There it is. github.com/.net-foundation/swag. Vipin's dialed in from India. Thank you, OS. I'm glad folks like the Super C# hat. I've worn this at Twitch events. I've worn this at .NET events, of course. And I've got a couple other custom hats that I've made that I've worn around. And I'm getting some new blazers all set up in time for .NET Conf. .NET Conf 2021 coming up in November. What week is it in November? There's a week that it is in November. I know this. I should know this. I should know this off the top of my head. November 9th. 9th, 10th, and 11th. We've got 3 straight days of .NET 6 announcements. If you're following along, maybe you don't follow .NET very closely. Maybe your job is just to do .NET and you just check in when there's announcements and things. Big announcements on that day. We have 80 sessions, 40 hours of content for you, including a third day that is 24 hours long. We've got speakers from, well, not every continent, from just about every continent. Sorry, Antarctica. And folks in your time zone that'll be presenting, talking about awesome .NET topics. I hope you tune in. Thank you for the .NET Conflink. Look at this, Sudoku covering the links for me. Thank you so much. So I've got a couple new blazer flavored blazers for that coming. Can't wait for it. Otseal is watching us from South Africa. Good to see you. Is the Xamarin Monkey still in trend? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. That's a very good question. Just found my channel searching for live streams about coding. Oh yeah, CSharpFritz is where you can find me over on the Twitch. And you can also find me on YouTube. I need to publish more of my videos. They're all hanging out there waiting to be published. There was a question, what do I think about the new features in Windows 11? Honestly, I'm not using those features right now. I'm not even using Windows 11 yet, mostly because I need to make sure I have a very stable system for producing videos like this. So I'll be installing Windows 11 in the next week or so here. Definitely, as it gets rolled out, I'll be installing it and we'll see how things go. But to be frank, the things that I typically build on stream are service apps, web things, mobile. I'm not using the Windows native features as much as I am things from other platforms. Let me start some music playing here in the background. This is Stream Beats from Harris Heller, and this is the Synthwave playlist. And I'm not... There it is. This is groovy music that's free to listen to, DMCA free, royalty free. Check it out, streambeats.com. There's playlists out there for Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Spotify. You can also download the songs if you'd like to listen to them that way as well. Thank you so much to Harris Heller for making this music available for us to listen to today. Yeah, there we go. Checking the levels so they're there, nice and chill behind me. You were told that .NET 6 RC1 supports required properties. Required, what do you mean? Required properties in Blazor? You need to make sure you have the latest Visual Studio preview. Arshi is here from Twitch. Hello, hello. The trend is Maui bot. What are we going to build today? We're not building anything today. We're going to be answering questions. These are beginner-friendly streams where we're talking about and teaching things like teaching things about the C# language. I haven't used the C# 10 required keyword. I haven't used that yet, Jason. So I can't help you with that today. But you're going to need to be on .NET 6, and you're going to need to make sure you're on the latest version. There's pointers in there to make sure you're the variables inside of your project to indicate which version of C# you're using. D'Angelo asks, so what is .NET? We can start with that question real quick. So .NET is an ecosystem of tools, technologies, and frameworks that you can use to build applications, whether it's for an IoT device or all the way up big scale to the cloud. So IoT devices, mobile devices, that's phones, tablets, desktop, workstation applications, whether it's Windows or Mac. You can build desktop graphical applications with that. You can build web applications. You can build services that run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can build all kinds of things, RESTful services. You can build for containers. Things work everywhere with .NET. There's tools that you can use to build with .NET, like Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, or even your favorite text editor with a rich set of command line tools that you can install and run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Great stuff that's all available for you to use, free and open source. the tools, Visual Studio is not open source. Visual Studio Code, the .NET command line tools, all open source. The .NET framework, completely open source. That you can check out, you can get involved with, you can contribute to, you can interact with. Vipin asks, what's the fastest way to learn C# end-to-end? Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm an instructor teaching C#. You can find all kinds of great content on the .NET website. If you go there and you click the Learn link up at the top, it's going to take you to a series of different resources that you can click through and go to. There, I just shared the link to both platforms. You can click through and learn. Depends on what you want to do with C#. You may want to build console applications. You may want to build websites. You may want to build mobile applications, games. There's tutorials. There's directions that'll get you started in each one of those genres, I guess you would say, of programming. Let me see here. Scrolling through here. What's the difference between .NET Core and .NET Framework? .NET Core, well, let's start with .NET Framework is the version of .NET libraries, languages, that was made available originally back in 2002. It was released. Worked only on Windows, and you only had 3 or 4 different project types. Console applications, Windows Forms applications, web forms applications, and web services with SOAP. Now that was in 2002. In the time since then, it's evolved a bit, but .NET Framework is a Windows component. Ships as part of Windows, and you build on Windows for Windows. In about 2014, the .NET team said, we want to build something that's more optimized for the cloud, more optimized for folks to run in containers, is more cloud native, works on the command line, completely open source, and works across Windows, Mac, and Linux. And .NET Core was born. .NET Core has evolved and has become now, all of the features of .NET Framework are now in .NET Core, and we've rebranded it back to just .NET. So .NET 5, .NET 6 being released in November, all support building and developing Windows-based graphical applications with Windows Forms, WPF. You can build web applications. You can build console applications. I think I mentioned web applications. Really great stuff that you can do with .NET Core coming up. Now, and .NET 6 coming up. Coming up, though, later, we had to postpone it out of .NET 6 at release time, is .NET MAUI. .NET MAUI is our cross-platform graphical user interface framework that's going to let you build for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. One set of code compiles and delivers and runs on all 4 operating systems. Stephen asks, is it worth learning WPF with MAUI on the horizon? Yes, there's lots of folks that have WPF applications out there. There are millions of WPF applications out there. They will continue to be supported. You will continue to see those evolve with .NET 6, .NET 7 in the future. We're recommending, though, for new applications going forward, folks consider .NET MAUI because you're going to go across various places that you may want to deploy to. And that capability, that flexibility is something that's very valuable. Arshia asks, does Unity use .NET? Yes, it does. The Unity game development framework is built with .NET. So when you build applications, when you build games with Unity, and there's some big games out there that you've probably played that are built with Unity, including Hearthstone, Pokemon Go, built with Unity, and you can see the Unity logos and some of the attributes when you look in the About section of those games. Really, really great stuff. Lakshi asks, how is .NET different from Python? Well, 2 different things there. Python, it's a programming language. .NET is this entire ecosystem that encompasses several programming languages. So Python Python's intended to be a file-based programming language that's not intentionally object-oriented. It's dynamic in nature, where you can use Visual Basic, C#, F# to build with .NET. There's actually like a dozen programming languages you can program against the .NET frameworks. But .NET is built and maintained by the folks at Microsoft. We now have, and the .NET Foundation for that matter, we now have folks that build and work on Python working at Microsoft as well. But you're going to see Python is interpreted. It's not really compiled, where .NET is compiled and you deliver binaries that build and run that way. Why not C++? C++ runs directly on the metal, runs directly against operating systems and processors. If you run with C# or another programming language, you get a higher level experience where you don't have to manage every interaction with the processor, all of the memory. You get that abstraction that allows you to be a little bit more productive than with C++. Is Silverlight the root of .NET Core? Asks Sebastian on YouTube. I wouldn't say it's the root. I'd say that the Silverlight runtime that was developed and built back in 2008, 2009, a bit of that was taken as inspiration for .NET Core. I don't think much of that source code is still in .NET Core, but a bit of that, because it was already built to run on Windows, Mac, and, well, Windows and Mac, was taken and adapted. And it's not the root, but it's definitely inspired how it started. Kyung Lee says, I'm confused about what link to entity versus link to SQL. Can I give you an example? Link to SQL is no longer a thing. Anybody who uses the terms link to SQL, that is not a thing. Link to entity is the way that you interact with Entity Framework using link statements to query and interact with a database. Link to SQL is not a thing anymore. That was a product that was delivered as part of .NET Framework 3.5 back in 2008 and has since been deprecated. What do I think about learning C coming from C#? What's a couple things to focus on when learning C? That's going away from... I'm not going to answer that question. Let me see here. What is .NET Standard? Asks Sharaf. So here's the thing. When .NET Framework was very Windows focused, the only .NET, things were, and I'm going to continue going through these questions, and we'll get over to the other set, and we'll talk about the various samples and things that I have here. .NET Standard, at a time when .NET Framework was the only .NET, ran only on Windows, the problem that we had was, well, if you want to run .NET somewhere else, you need a different version of .NET. So things like Silverlight were built that had their own runtime that was different from .NET Framework. Our friend Miguel Diacaza and his team built Mono, and it was built in a clean room. They didn't have any of the source code from .NET Framework, and they built and they developed Mono, which became the foundation for Unity and the Xamarin mobile development tools. So we had these different versions, and then the Windows 8 folks said, "Hey, we like that. We want our own our own .NET also." So they developed UWP. So you ended up with all these .NETs. Well, how do I build something that's going to compile and deploy and work on all of those .NETs? So there were several different approaches that were taken, but the approach that was decided on and agreed to was .NET Standard. And that's a contract that is developed as an API standard that you can build class libraries to target, such that you can then consume those class libraries that target a .NET Standard version inside of an application that implements that API version. So if you were building a UWP application and you wanted to share your business logic with somebody who was building a Xamarin application, you could target .NET Standard 1.0 with your class libraries that you wanted to share. And that library could be shared and work in both UWP and in a Xamarin mobile app. As we look forward towards .NET 5, with .NET 5 towards .NET 6, because we've seen here that, my gosh, it's the .NET quickening. There's a Highlander reference for you. It's the quickening where there can be only one .NET. We're seeing then that things like .NET Standard aren't really needed unless you want to build something that targets .NET 5, .NET 6, and .NET Framework, because they all implement the same APIs, but slightly differently in .NET Framework. So you need to know a little bit of that difference. What's my favorite C# 10 new feature? You know what? I haven't spent time with C# 10 yet. Can't answer that just yet. Where can you get this hat? You're going to have it made yourself. There was a link to the swag repository just a little bit. So Arshia says, having problems understanding the scope. .NET is on top of Unity, and C# is on top of .NET. Correct. So you program C# to target .NET, and it works in Unity. Are we still going to see web forms? Asks Ostiel. Web forms is part of .NET Framework. .NET Framework continues to be supported with Windows. Why was Maui delayed? It's not done. It still had a significant number of errors and features that weren't at the quality level that we think you, our customers, require when you build applications with .NET, and we wanted to make sure that we met that quality bar. .NET Maui is completely open source. You can check out the source code right on GitHub. You can interact with them. You can see what's happening and participate in those discussions. Even contribute source code if you'd like. But it wasn't quite at the quality bar that we think it needed to be for a November release. There's a series of quality requirements that we have as we near that release, and as we were looking towards a release candidate version, it just wasn't quite there yet, so it was delayed. And there's a great blog post from the head of .NET development, Scott Hunter, over on the Microsoft blogs if you'd like to check out and read more about the evolution of .NET Maui. It's Banana still writing GUI apps with C++ with Win32. Is Banana a weirdo? No, not at all. There's lots of folks that do that. Chandler on Twitch asks, is Visual Studio going open source soon? No. It's a commercial tool that will not be made open source. If you want an open source tool for development, that's why they built Visual Studio Code. Scrolling through here. Thoughts on Uno and Blazor, asks Anurag. Uno is a different framework. It's a different platform that you can use to build applications that target WebAssembly. It's a little bit different from Blazor, where Blazor builds and runs on .NET. Uno builds and runs directly on WebAssembly. Not bad. It's a great choice, and we're happy to see that there's folks that are innovating and building with the .NET tools to target other interesting frameworks. So we're very, very happy to see that. Tips on raising awareness about Blazor in a web forms heavy workplace, asks ads $3.99.39 on YouTube. Show folks how similar they are. Blazor pages are to web forms. Some of the benefits you see from that, how you can build and deploy and have things run on Linux in containers. Have folks work on their Macs with Blazor, or on Linux with Blazor as well. Show them those benefits of getting around web forms and how Blazor continues to evolve and how you can run it on your choice of server or client. Really good stuff there. Hem asks, what's my recommended solution package third-party module for custom routing? Haven't really thought about custom routing. I always use the standard routing. So, sorry, don't have an answer for that. I like the standard routing that comes with .NET. Harsheath on YouTube asks, if I learn Entity Framework Core, do I need to learn SQL again in depth? No. No, you don't. Knowing SQL, knowing how to query databases will help you, but you don't need to learn SQL in depth. Deepak on YouTube asks, what should I choose for desktop? I'm new to desktop. Windows Forms, WPF, Maui, or Blazor? That's a good question. That's a good question. What should I choose for desktop? Part of me says to choose WinForms because you're going to have a great designer experience and you don't really need to think about where things are laid out. If you're familiar with and you've worked with the web, Blazor hybrid applications running on .NET MAUI are going to be very comfortable for you, and I would go that way. If you've worked with XAML, if you like working with XAML, if you think you're going to be targeting mobile applications in the future, Maui is going to be the best. If you're brand new and you had to choose between WPF and Maui, I would learn Maui. Sibonello on YouTube asks, with .NET MAUI on the horizon, should one still put focus on Xamarin? For now, yes. If you're maintaining applications, production applications, keep an eye on Xamarin while we're waiting for Maui to be released. You don't necessarily have a go live license for .NET MAUI, so I would recommend keep things with Xamarin for now. What's the best method for protecting source code when distributing releases? There's a product called Dotfuscator. You can get a community edition of it. Ships with Visual Studio 2019, 2022. But here's the thing. If you build... It doesn't matter what you deploy, what you build and deploy. At some point, it needs to be compiled and put into memory, and folks can intercept and interact with that. If you put something on somebody else's machine, they will decompile it. They will find it. And they will know how you wrote your code. I was thinking there was a Liam Neeson thing there, and it just wasn't coming together. We're on YouTube, Twitch, and we're on Learn TV. And I don't see anybody from Learn TV chiming in there, so that's okay. Any standout examples of well-structured C# libraries or applications? C# library, a great C# library that I keep referring to. JSON.NET is amazing. But applications, there's some great samples in the .NET samples repository, .NET presentations repository on GitHub. Can we call ourselves a .NET developer if we use .NET and we use other apps like Maya that target Python? Yeah, you can do that. How do you get authentication state when pre-rendering Blazor WebAssembly? Oh, that's a little bit deep. Security stuff like that is always a tricky question, and that's a little bit that's a bit of a different question. I would recommend check in with our friends on the 425 show for a little bit about that. What's the difference between my C# beginners course and the Docs Microsoft C# pathway? My C# beginners course? This is strictly a beginner-friendly discussion. The C#, the Microsoft Learn C# learning path is very much intended to be a self-guided tour. Can I recommend a printed resource to learn C#? No. Blazor and SharePoint should be a thing. Sure. Seriously, I would not buy a book on C#, a printed source. No. I would learn it online because there is a new version every year. So... JSON is blocked by SharePoint? Really? I don't believe that. I can't believe that. Both Blazor and upcoming Maui support for user interface. What's the difference? .NET MAUI gives you the ability to build with two different development models. You can use XAML, based on Xamarin, to build and then target the four operating systems, Windows, Mac OS, iOS, and Android. If you build with Blazor, it effectively embeds a web view and a server-side rendering of Blazor inside your application. That's what's going on there. Let me see here. Today is all AMA. Yes, indeed. And I've got a bunch of samples to go through from questions we got earlier. Does Microsoft have any kind of repository of functional build code one can import into Visual Studio? I don't know what you're talking about, Vital Duck. So I'll say no. But you can see all of the code that we've open sourced. GitHub.com/Microsoft, GitHub.com/.net, and you'll find all the source code that we've shared there. What's Learn TV? If you go to live.net, live.dot.net, you can see Learn TV, and we're broadcasting over there as well. Is there there's always a secret way to your Hello World project? Well, a little. What's the difference between stringly typed and strongly typed? See, stringly typed is when folks are building things, and particularly in HTML and in technologies that target HTML output, and they're generating and they're formatting strings. They're just pushing strings around. Strongly typed is you're passing these strongly typed objects in. You're passing in your orders, your products, right? If you're building a shopping cart website, and you're using those to be formatted in there. It's honestly, I don't see too much of a difference between the two, and I think it's a little bit nitpicking when folks say, "Oh, you're stringly typed." So what? So what? When exactly should you use the internal access modifier? Internal access modifier on classes and methods properties should be used when you want that object, that property, that event, whatever it might be, that method, to only be available inside of that assembly, that DLL, that project. Otherwise, make it either public or private. Public, it's globally available, everything can access it. Private, it's only available inside of that class, that struct, that type. And we're going to get into classes versus structs today. Lots of great questions here today. Any tips I wish someone had told you when I was getting started with .net? That's another good question. Learn to write unit tests. Learn to write unit tests. Be friends, be very good friends with the folks who are going to be maintaining your applications in the production space, because you're handing your code off to them and they need to go and manage that application. So build things that they can use over there. You can't get JSON in SharePoint. Seriously, I do not believe that. There's got to be a way to use JSON in SharePoint. SharePoint is built on a lot of JavaScript interactions now. There's got to be a thing there. You're looking for a CSV reader package, a few CSV reader packages. The CSV package that we used last time is, let me bring it up here. See this. We used it in Notebook 6. And we were reading information. Link to CSV is what I use. And it lets you query and interact with your, there it is right there. Lets you query and interact with your CSV files as though it was a database. What are my thoughts about using Azure Static Web Apps for Blazor WASM? Love it, Sharaf. I've built a couple of them, including ClipTalk and my hat collection. Gosh, I was hoping not to use the Windows machine here, but I think I'm going to have to open it here. Hats, CSharpFritz.com. I seriously need to take this keyboard apart and fix that C key. Let's go over here, and you can see we've built this live on stream. There's the Hats website. And over here, if you go to ClipTalk, KLIPTOK.com, that's another website that we've been building live on stream. And it will show you in just a second here when it loads. Something's happening with my web server. There we go. It'll show you clips from Twitch that folks have captured that are cool for you to check out, and a list of all the folks that you follow, and show you some of the clips that they found. There's my hat collection. You can check out the source for the hat collection website is completely available for you. Completely available for you online. You can click through and check that out. But it's got a few of my hats. A few. So, WebView 2, can it be used as Electron, or is there another way? Yep, absolutely. It can. And we're encouraging folks to use that. Will Visual Studio 2021 be more stable than 2019 in preview? What? At least Visual Studio notifies me politely to restart every 30 minutes in most projects. What? And it's Visual Studio 2022. It should be much more stable. It's built with 64-bit configuration. You should have, it should be very stable for you. I haven't had any issues with it in about a month or two. Star.json extension is blocked, not JavaScript. Okay, well. It's blocked to maintain integrity with SharePoint product. No, no. They're preferring to push JSON around. You should be able to do that. It'd be interesting to see how I link Blazor and Fauna and get data for the hats. Source code is here. If you want to see, I'm using FaunaDB with this. So if you go into the API, you can see I have a connection here for how I reach out and interact with FaunaDB, a cloud-based database that we used for this website. You can use all kinds of databases, but this is what I used, and it has a Azure function here that goes out, fetches those hats, and presents them. So real easy to see. Hey, I'm gonna just go get the collection of hats and return it when the API endpoint get hats is called. Done. So let me see here. Is there anything more satisfying than seeing all the green check marks after writing a batch of useful unit tests? Totally agreed. Totally agreed. With WebView 2, what is the multi-platform host? I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by what is the multi-platform host? When you build and deploy with .NET MAUI, it replaces with the appropriate browser on the various platforms. Does anything like a Razor Visual Designer exist? No. No. Am I using virtualization to list the hats on the website? No. Nope. What I am doing, there's lazy loading on the images. It's loading literally 50 documents. So, right there, get hats. It's 4K. Like, there's no reason to virtualize that. It's 4K, right? But the loading of the images, it was lazy loading these. I thought I had cache disabled. Yeah, it should be lazy loading them, and I'm not even... Oh, wait a sec. Sorry. Try that again. Yeah, when you have the filter turned on, right? So, right when I start scrolling, you'll see it's going to go and load some of the... Well, actually, it loaded all of them. It should have lazy loaded them. And now I'm sad. Oh well. Something to tune for next time. You want to learn how to host an API and connect it to Blazor WebAssembly using static web apps. Any recommendations? Asks Sharaf. If you go through to the source code here, I didn't update this, but you can go check out the GitHub template and no. Where is it? Here's the quick start guide with a tutorial how to go through it. It's right there linked from the top of the Hats website, and it shows you how to do the default static website. Real easy to build with. So, is ASP better than Django for startups? Oh, yes. Yes. ASP.NET Core is the fastest website framework available for you out there. So if we click through to the benchmarks, as of February, the round 20, right? So if we take a look just at the plain text here, right? ASP.NET Core, 7.01 million requests per second. Okay. If we look for Django, Django is 342nd at 79,000 requests per second that it handles. It's literally 2 orders of magnitude faster than Django. Okay? Django's nice for folks that know Python. If you know Python, you're comfortable working with it, that's great. I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't use Django. But I am going to tell you, this is what the Tech Empower folks say. If we take a look at Fortunes, where they're doing database queries on these, ASP.NET Core querying against Postgres down here comes in at 400,000 requests per second. And if we look for Django, it's even further down, working with Postgres at 15,000 requests. So you're still off by orders of magnitude working with Django, okay? And you're welcome to take a look at any of these. I will copy and share that link. So if you're in chat, you want to check out the Tech Empower benchmarks, you can go and read more about that. You've only worked with .NET Framework, says Ken on YouTube. How easy is it to learn .NET Core? Easy. .NET Core, .NET Framework, most of the code, all of the C# you know works the same. There's new features that are now available to you with C# 9 and coming up in C# 10. Recently told in an interview that it would be very difficult. I'd love to hear more about who was interviewing you and told you that it would be difficult, because they are wrong. Yeah. Let's see here. Hundreds of times faster. Yes, indeed. You've done well with Drupal? That's fine. No, Drupal's right. Drupal is a content management system. It's not a web framework. So, all right. I think it's time to head over and start talking about some of the other samples and things. Love the AMA. Love the questions that we're getting. And we're going to shift over. See, look at that. I'm switching to the headset. We're going to shift over to the full set here so we can go through and interact with this. And start talking about some of the other questions that have come up. Some of the things that I skipped over. And there was a really great question we had about when should you use concurrent and immutable dictionaries. We're going to talk about that as well. Before I wander over to the other set here in the Fritz studio, Kyung says, should I use async functions link for my entire projects? I can't answer that. I don't know what your entire project is. I'm sorry. It's something that I would use. I don't know if you would use it for your entire project. It's worked well for me. I use link all over the Clip Talk application. And I'm using that both on the front side in Blazor, and I'm running in your browser, and I use it in the Azure Functions running on the servers. What is next? What is NetFrame 4.9? No. .NET 6 is next in November. .NET Framework, we have no plans for a .NET Framework 4.9. 4.8 is in maintenance. So, Link performs great in Xamarin as well. All right, let me grab my coffee here, because coffee and coffee, it's what powers us as developers here. Taking a look, making sure I have everything set up the way that I want it here. Looking good. Yeah, let's go get into the code and talk about this, about some of the other questions that have come up. Go through and explore some of these samples. So I'm going to get into the code over there. Let me grab all my things. Oh no! I've rolled over my... Oh, no. See that? And the laptop went to sleep on me. There we go. Let's bring this up. And I'm going to log back in. This is a Linux workstation. This is a laptop. I am running not on WSL. I am not in a VM. I am running Linux directly on this laptop. This is a laptop from our friends at Kubuntu Focus, kfocus.com. You can check out. They make these laptops that have NVIDIA cards in them, completely tuned and running very, very well for folks, developers, IT professionals, folks that demand a good bit of power, and you want that concierge-like experience so that you have somebody maintaining and delivering updates for the packages that run on your system. They deliver and take care of all that for you. It's really, really great stuff. Coffee is programmer's life partner. Well, yeah, there's that. Thank you, Sudoku, for sharing the K-Focus link there. Much appreciate. All right, let's get into this. So this is the errata review number 1. I might do a second one of these a little bit further down, but I want to cover some of the questions that we got, some of the things that we missed along the way, and we're going to cover them in this. You can find this notebook. It is part of our collection out here on the website, the GitHub website. Go to CSharpFritz, C#with_CSharpFritz, and I have a complete collection of these interactive notebooks available for you here, along with all kinds of samples that we've done covering Blazor, Windows Forms, WPF, ASP.NET, and we're going to cover .NET MAUI coming up in 2022. You'll find samples in this repository, and if you're watching this and it's sometime later in 2022, 2023, or later than that, check out the repository. There's going to be a lot more in here than what I'm showing on video. We're working today in this this notebook, 0107 errata over here. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's get into this a little bit. Some of the things that we've skipped over that folks probably know, but we want to make sure that we cover it for those that haven't and haven't experienced, haven't walked through, and talk about it here with you. Can't wait for .NET development on SteamOS. That should be possible. Should be. Don't know. Haven't tried it. You love seeing .NET in notebooks? I totally agree, Sudoku. And being able to get visualizations in your notebooks is a very cool thing as well. So, first thing that we didn't really talk about, and we probably should, is the increment and decrement operators, plus and minus, right? So, of course, just like in other programming languages, you can put a minus, or you can put a plus, and it will automatically, come on, increment that. Now, it increments it after whatever it is that's wrapping it executes. So, check out here, display counter plus. So, we set counter to 1. We're going to display counter and then increment it. So, that's how we get 2 down here. Well, same thing also works with minus, right? We can do minus, and we'll go 1 and then 0. So, okay, that's fine if we want to do that increment or decrement after we show it. You can also put that operator before the variable, and you'll get the experience of it changing the value before it acts. So I put the plus before counter, and we get 2, and so nothing happens, right? It incremented it before it showed it. Kind of easy to understand, and something that I wanted to make sure we covered before we went too far along here. Taking a look back up here. What kind of Linux am I using? This is Ubuntu Linux I'm using. It's Ubuntober. Ubuntu Linux all month long. ASP.NET Core 6 Blazor Leave MVC. I like SPA. Yes, we like the single page application model as well. And I personally prefer to build with Blazor. There's reasons folks would want to continue building with MVC. You want to have your entire application running on the server. You like the model view controller architecture. Great reasons to continue working with MVC. It's all about choice. It's all about how you want to build applications for your environment, for your customers. If MVC is great for you, fantastic. If you want to build very page-focused, so that each navigation that each URL folks go to navigate to is a different page, different file. Razor Pages works great for that. Blazor and the component-focused architecture that comes with that are great for folks that want to build and work with a single-page application type of architecture. Continuing here, what are my thoughts on deciding which architecture or design to use for projects? Like DDD, CQRS, clean architecture. You know what? I can't tell you which one to use. There's some really good ones in there. There's a lot of thought leadership in that collection. Honestly, I would start off with as clean an architecture as possible. I would start there, knowing that eventually I may evolve into a different architecture. Folks that go into a project and say, we're going to build this with very complex architecture X. We're going to use DDD and CQRS for this project from the beginning. They might have an ulterior motive, because when you talk about those very complex architectures and you don't have a very complex system that you're building, you're over-engineering things. So, yeah, thank you, Sudoku, for the link to the architecture guides. What do I think of the Conflux ecosystem? Not familiar with it, sorry. Sorry. All right, continuing on. So, yep, there's the before interaction right there as the next sample. Of course, you can negate. I never covered the negation operator. You can negate values by putting a exclamation point in front of them. So, right, very simple. True, false. If we say true and we say display not is true, of course, that's going to come out as false. And we're going to say if display is 1 greater than 2 and invert that, of course it comes out as true. We didn't cover that earlier. I wanted to make sure that we covered that before we got too far into this. Using async and link will give better performance than without using. Not necessarily. Async is something that will release processor handles and allow other applications or other processes to pick up and use the processor while something running out of process happens. Working with a database, this makes perfect sense, because the database query is running, release the processor handle, let it go do something else, and when the database returns, go pick up another thread and go and continue processing. That's great for applications that have a lot of traffic. For applications that don't have a lot of traffic, it may actually slow it down. Now, slow it down is relative. Slow it down by a couple milliseconds. It's not going to slow it down by seconds, but slow it down by a couple milliseconds, perhaps. Your mileage may vary. All right, continuing on. I've got a bunch to get to here. We haven't talked about working with the actual types. We've got different classes, different things, different shapes of things that we worked with, but the types of those things we can actually work with inside code. So there's 3 different methods that I want to talk about. Type of, get type, and name of. So you use type of to get a reference to the type for use in methods you want to interact with. You want to get into a little bit of reflection. And I think we can get into reflection a little bit another time. So if I say type of and I pass in a type, I'll get, just like here, system int 32 when I say type of int. Look at that integer type and tell me what the type is, right? Excuse me. I could also put in here, right, type of stream. Of course, you're gonna tell me I need system IO, right? Come on. Yeah, stream. There we go. And it's a system IO stream. Now I can work with that type at this point. It's not just that text that I've keyed into the editor. I can interact with it and do things, right? Same things if I wanted to use like maybe stream reader, stuff like that. There it is. Now I have the type, I can work with it. Similarly, if you have an instance of an object, right? So down here, I have my int. My int is an integer. It's the value 5. Well, I want to work with the type behind that. I can execute the getType method on that. And getType is a method on objects. So literally any instance of an object that you're working with, you can call getType, and you'll get that type reported. SystemInt32. So I have ways to reach in and identify exactly what the type is of a value that's been passed into a method, right? Or passed into a property, right? I can interact with that. Maybe there's reasons I want to inspect that type and I want to check out, is it this type or is it that type? Do this versus do that. You can inspect it that way. We can also use the name of expression to get the name of that type as a string to work with. I see some questions coming in chat. When I finish this block, I'll answer those questions. So here, if I have a class called people, right? So I have people. People have names, and we're going to calculate their age, and we're going to say date time now, subtract, and we're going to pass in everybody has the same birth date here of January 1st, 2000. So we can say Fritz's new people right there. Fritz name, and I can take a look at and say, well, look at this. If I say name of people, it gives me the name of that type, and it is submission 16 people. Now, that looks kind of weird, submission 16. That's actually the name of that code block in the .NET notebook. So it's submission 16 people, right? It's the people class I got returned to me as a string. When I say display type of, name of people comes out as a string. There it is. Type of gives me this one. Say that again. Name of gave me the string people. Type of gives me the type, including the namespace where it was created. And when we say display name of, and we point to this object and that property, okay? So I'm referencing an instance and then its property, I get that string name of name. Now, why would you do that? Name of allows you to be to avoid passing what we call magic strings around code. I could certainly turn this into a nicely formatted little label with the actual value of that person, and we run it again. See, it says name of Fritz. Now, if I had just changed this and forced the label there, right, to name like that, okay, it's the same output. But if I go and change this to, let's change this to surname, all my code breaks. Okay, so, right, I'm going to change this. If I had done a refactoring where it automatically rolled out, well, here's where those values are. Well, now it says name Fritz. That's not the same intent that we had, okay? Where if we had this as, and this is a completely a completely made up sample here. There's other places in code, not necessarily a label, where you're going to want to, should be name of, where you're going to want to do this. If I had made that using the name of, I would get an error that it doesn't know what that label is. And now, right, me as a developer, I know, I need to rethink how I'm using that right there. Maybe I want to use a label data annotation. Maybe I want to use something else to format so it follows along. And there's other places where you want to reference the name of a property, the name of a class, and you want to use that appropriately. Maybe you're building a logging system. Maybe you're building something that's reporting and doing validation, and you want to output those names of those properties or names of those classes that failed validation. And that's a good place where name of fits in. Let me take a look back at chat. Let's catch up to you here. Yagni, yeah, that's right. You aren't going to need it. That's a great principle when you're thinking about architecture. How do you get a type from a string? So maybe you have int or double. Ken on YouTube asks, or even from a class name, my class name. So you want to get a type from that string. So let's do that. That's a great question, Ken. Let's add another. I'm going to insert a cell, code cell below this. So let's get types. Come on. Types from. Fritz can't type. From strings. So I can say var. Let's call this my stream equals. Right, I would say normally new stream to get that, but if it's passed in, right, this would be system IO stream, right? Display type of my stream. Okay. Right. What do you mean I can't? Okay, new memory stream. Typer. Oh, it's an instance. My bad. There we go. All right, so there I've got a memory stream. So if I want to generically create an object from that string, right? From that name, right? So let's call this stream type. Right? So now if I want to create that, you use the activator. So I would say var my stream equals activator create instance, and I pass it. Well, look, it's already suggesting for me here what I could use. Put a semi up there. There we go. So you can see it a little bit easier. Where'd my code go? There we go. Create instance, and I'm going to pass in stream type. It's a create instance from, right? String, yeah. Assembly name type name. I need the assembly name, which is system.io, I believe it is. There we go. Now it's giving me a remoting object handle. Why? That's a great question. Why didn't it give me the full? Let's change that. Let's do something else. That's weird. I wasn't expecting that. Know what I'm saying? If I do that, ooh. Yeah, why didn't I get system string? It's not in the system. That's the darn it. Where is string? What's another one? Date time. Can we get that? No. Where is it? I mean, heck, we could do. Let's do this. Let's do this. Right? If I say new date time, I can actually get the full name. Now, that's not what I want. I can get other information about it, the assembly qualified name. There we go. System private core lib is where it's coming out of. So I still get this remoting object handle, but it is that type, right? I made it a date time, so I can now force this to that type, right? Even though it's a date time sitting there, you're gonna have to use reflection to go through and get to the actual type of it. But I could force it to date time like that. Oh, come on. I'm going through, right, create instance from. I don't think, yeah, it gives you an object handle. I need to do a little bit further on remoting. But at this point, you have that object, and you can start interacting with the methods and objects within it. I thought there was even a generic type you could work with there on that. But you use creator, activator, create instance to create those various types. In the name of example, how would you do it to get the data annotation had you changed the name that way? If I had the data annotation, well, you're not using name of. You would be using, if you use the data annotation, you would reach into the object and get the attributes on top of it. Yeah, stream is abstract. So that's what I get for trying to make up a sample as we go here. Very handy for making a form generator, absolutely. Or form generator, logs, those types of things where you need to inspect whatever that object is that's been returned to you. I'm going to change this back to IO memory stream and change this back to system IO, and there's, say it's a remoting object handle, but I can reach in and I can say I can start interacting with that object. So, all right, moving on. String formatting. Something that I hadn't covered is string formatting, and there is so much about string formatting that folks need to use and interact with. Of course, if you're formatting strings, if you're working with string content, and of course, if you're building a website, you're working with a lot of string content. You're going to want to be able to concatenate, format, and represent things, slice and dice and interact with them. It's like a Ron Popeil thing to work with your strings. Why do I've got... All right. You can, of course, concatenate strings using the plus operator, right? So I can say hello, and I can concatenate that with world by saying greeting plus world. Okay, that's fine. And I can also use the plus equals operator to add and reassign back that value. So I can do hello world, hello C# developers using plus. Okay, that's fine. If we want to combine multiple strings, we can use that plus operator, right? And then we can even put in a little bit of ternary expression here. So if we say, well, depending on what time it is, we're going to concatenate that together by saying string concat now, and it'll grab those values and mash them together for us as one string. Okay, so if we run that, good morning Visual Studio channel, because the time is greater than 3 and less than noon. Okay. Now we can also do string.join to take those three terms and join them together and pass in a space here that we want it to just merge those together. We'll get the same value. But we've done it now with a join, string.join method. The way that was recommended for folks to format and put together strings that was, and concat is not memory intensive. It's a very good memory optimized way to use strings to put them together. If you use the pluses to concatenate strings, you end up allocating and deallocating a bit of memory, mashing those together. The way that was recommended for a long time was use string.format. So when you do string.format, it's going to take in some sort of a format, good, and some tags here that indicate, well, here's where we're going to place each one of the elements that are in the format statement. So good and element, the first element, the 0th element, and then the first element. Order doesn't matter that they appear in the template. 0th, then the first. So here's the format, here's the 0th element, the time, and the name that goes next. So we format that. Good Visual Studio channel morning. we can, of course, turn that around. Good morning, Visual Studio channel. Okay, so that's a nice way for you to have a specific format, right? And pass into it later the values that you want. But with C# 7 and later, we introduced string interpolation to help you format a string. So in this way, we can pass in a very human readable way, and you see this also with JavaScript. We can format by prefixing our string with a $sign to indicate that string interpolation is happening here. And all of the values that we want to take from C# and turn into strings and mash into that string, we place inside of curly braces like this. Okay? And if I run that block, good morning, Visual Studio, Fritz, Scott, Maria, and Jamie. So we've taken our capabilities now and made it more readable. Now, this is good if you have the variable handy that you want to format. If it might be coming in later at runtime, you don't know where it's coming from, string format might be the better way to go, right? Because you're going to pass that in. You'll have a standard format somewhere, pass in the values, and apply that format, okay? So, very handy. You can also use a string builder class, which just allocates blocks of string as you need them, and at the end, it will paste them all together as one string. So, create a string builder, good, and I'll pass in the time. I can append formats there, and I can append blocks of strings like space and a variable, and I'll output that information. Good morning, Visual Studio channel. So once again, we're formatting, we're handling, and different techniques to make larger strings. Of course, regular expressions are available. It's not a tool that we encourage folks to use. There are times where it makes sense to use regular expressions, but we do not encourage you to use regular expressions because there are ways to write regular expressions, especially if you receive a regular expression. But there are ways that folks can format strings that will make your regular expressions run infinitely and break your application, okay? So we do not recommend folks use regular expressions without significant validation before the regular expression is applied. Let me take a look at chat here. Let's catch up here. How would you assign a string to a text box to include a new line? If you wanted to include a new line in here, \n, and it adds a new line. Okay. There's a couple of key formats like that, a couple of string formats, special keys like that you can use. There's also, I believe it's on system environment. Some of those special characters are available. So if I say system environment, there we go, new line, right? So you can have it sitting there and very clearly, this is what I'm adding. What else? The exit, you can put exit code. There's new line, the machine name, the current tick count, the current username, the current version of the CLR that you're using. So you can certainly reach in here and use some of these, and it's specific to the operating system, the environment that you're running on. Okay, so that's available to you as well. I think tab character should have been in there also. Was tab character in there? No, but tab character is \t. You can use that. So, okay. Let me continue looking at chat here. String interpolation is beautiful with C#, kind of ugly in Python, says 3D Polywraith on Twitch. Okay. I'll agree with you on that. I can buy that. Hey Rita, good to see you in Berlin. It's very similar to JavaScript. Yep. Yep, but JavaScript does it where you have to put the $sign in front of what it is you're interpolating, right? So if I was doing string interpolation up here and it was the JavaScript version, right, it would be backtick hello dollar paren curly brace name, right? That would be the JavaScript way to do it. So I'm putting an extra character in front of the value that I'm parsing and putting in the string and using the backticks. Similar, just different location of things. All right, continuing here. Is it not \r\n on Windows and /n on Linux? Yes, it is. I'm on Linux though. So, yeah, environment new line will get it appropriately. Wow, Spectari with a really long question here. Following along with a Blazor tutorial when using Windows. It had client-side code in the format of a normal Blazor project and the server-side code like MVC project structure. Now I'm on Linux, wondering if there's a way to replicate that template. It should be identical. .NET code should be the same, especially for Blazor or web applications. It is exactly the same whether you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux. You should be able to copy and run the exact same code on all three platforms, particularly with Blazor. Not a problem about it. Happy to answer your question. All right. Is Identity Server and ASP Identity the same product? Asks Sebastian on YouTube. No, it is not. Identity Server is a product that that's made by I forget the name of their company. It's made by a third-party company, and it's built to allow you to generate JWT JOT tokens, and also to manage and integrate with other authorization platforms. Identity is a framework that runs as part of ASP.NET that has tools for you to interact with those things, but it doesn't have that server capability to be able to interact with and generate the JOT tokens. All right, moving on. All right, parsing strings with split. So, just like in other languages, there's a split keyword, a split method you can use on a string variable to break up a string into an array. So, good morning, Cleveland. Why did I choose Cleveland? Why Cleveland? I don't know. Cleveland, it's Cleveland. But if I say to split that phrase, I get good morning and Cleveland as the three elements of the array that are returned at index positions 0, 1, and 2. So I can then use the indexer, right? You see here I'm using the indexer on that array to say, well, get the third element. Remember, C# arrays start at base 0. So get the third element here, and it returns Cleveland. So split's a nice way for you to interact with your strings, pull that apart so that you work with different parts of them. I can get the Fibonacci sequence here and split that on the commas, and I get the members of the Fibonacci sequence. Same things. All right. Taking a look at chat. Oh, you're not asking stupid questions at all, Arshia. Very happy to answer questions. It's because Cleveland rocks. Is that a Bruce Springsteen joke? Was that him saying good morning to the wrong place? Actually, good morning Cleveland is it's a Philadelphia joke. To be frank, there was a billboard that was set up just outside the sports arenas on one of the main highways. And for some reason, it was a billboard for the local radio station. I forget exactly what the tagline was, dedicated to Philadelphia or something, we know what we're doing in Philadelphia, and it said, good morning, Cleveland. Like, what? Nobody understood it, and they took it down right away, but the radio DJs made fun of it endlessly. So, yeah, no such thing as stupid questions here. Absolutely. Any reason I'm using var rather than string? Personal preference. It doesn't make a difference. Whether you use var or you use string here only makes a difference at compile time. Does not make a difference at runtime. So it'll take an extra millisecond to identify what type that is and change it and assign the type string to this. I prefer using var. So, all right, cool. Continuing on, I talked a bit about enums. Let's go a little bit further into enums. So, enumerable types, enum types, are extensions on top of numeric types. By default, they wrap the integer data type, an int. But that's nice and right, when you wrap with an int, that means you have up to, right, 2.1 billion values that you can have in your enumerable type. That's nice, but it's probably, for most of the things that we're building, we want to be enumerable. It's probably too much memory to allocate for those. So you can actually make them smaller if you'd like. For example, here, I created an enum called .NET languages that is, instead of being an integer, it's a byte. So, right, I have CSharp, I assigned the value 100, Visual Basic is 2, and F# is 3, and now I can interact with that. So if I say display my language, which is, in my case, C#, I get the value 100. If I cast it to a byte, I get the value 100. And, right, display my language was C#. Yeah, 100, and it's a 100 even if it's an integer. I can push a numeric type into the .NET languages. So I can say, well, take the value 2 and make it a .NET language and display that, and it returns Visual Basic. This is really handy to have available if you want to have values that you work with in code that are enumerables, right? Like my programming languages here. And when you put it in the database, you put it in to be stored somewhere, right? When you allocate rows in the database, it's a heck of a lot easier to deal with a million rows that have a byte instead of a million rows that have an integer in it and they're only storing one of 3 values. And it'll store in the database not the text, C#, Visual Basic, or F#. It would instead store 100, 2, or 3. Terrific. Now we're talking. Now we've got a smaller data type that we've allocated in the database, and when it comes out into our code, us developers can continue working with it as that more described type that we expect from our enumeration, from our enumerables. Taking a look here, I see some more questions coming in. You're surprised that only real constants can be assigned? What do you mean? Oh, right, you can't do a calculation with them. Not by default, but there's ways to extend it. Well, it's server-side right in the middle of compile time. Well, compile time only happens once, right? When you build your application. There's a just-in-time start time that all of the reference to things as a var, that's already gone away at that point, right? It's just starting up your application at that point. So now we can take our enumerable type and we can work with strings instead by using the parse and try parse keywords here. So if we say this language is C#, we can say enum.parse and we specify the type. Remember, we worked with generics, with collections. Well, this time we're using a generic argument here saying this is the type that I want to get out. I want to get a .NET language type. And we're going to pass in the string, this language. I'm going to hang, I've been looking at saying I want to hang a monitor on that wall over there so that I can see what's going on without having to do this look over. It'll look more like I'm looking at my code if I have it over here. I think I'm going to do that in the next day or two, so that next week we've got it set up over there. All right, so I can parse that text C# and display that we get that enumerable back. We can also pass in a parameter to indicate if the parse should be case insensitive. So we're going to pass in C#, and we're going to say, well, that's case insensitive. And if we execute that, it finds in both cases that enumerable value C#. Okay? So we can work with the text of it if we want to, or not. It's up to you. So parse out some string that might be, if you're converting data types, you might parse a string, turn it into the enumerable before you put it in the database. Stuff like that you might run into. Projector? No, not a projector. Nope. When to use record class struct. That's coming up. See, you can't see it, but because it's already gone down here, the scroll bar is down below. Can you see it? You can't see it over there. It's already about 3/4 of the way down. We're coming to that. That's a topic we're going to get to. So we can say try parse here. It's a very similar structure. Passing in, here's a value. We're going to say true, and we specify the out value here. So try parse will display whether it'll return, were you successful? And we can say out var and this type that we want to write it into. So if we execute that, it was successful at parsing Visual Basic, and we got the Visual Basic type. Of course, if I have it spelled wrong, no, it was not successful, and foo was not initialized. It's 0. Okay? So you can tinker with that, and you can see a little bit about how try parse works. You see it? All right. It might be my monitor's a little bit dark here. Still would use React instead of Blazor. It's up to you. That's fine. There are folks who are C# experts who prefer Blazor over React. There's also something to be said about the politics of the governing bodies of both frameworks as well. So there's a method out here, get values, we can use to get an array of the numeric values for that enum type. So enum get values, and we pass in the type that we want to inspect, and if we execute that, there's my 3 types returned: Visual Basic, F#, C#. And we can convert back to named values with a little conversion. So for each in there, display .NET languages type of that, and it returns those. Okay. So now the next one, classes versus structs. And I tried to put records into this discussion as well, but records don't work in .NET notebooks. At least it didn't for me in this configuration. I don't know why. It should, but it didn't. We'll talk further about records another time. I have a session on C# 9. I'll probably add C# 10 content to that as well. So classes versus structs. We know the class keyword, and that creates a reference type, right? A reference type that goes on the heap, right? .NET memory is managed in 2 places, the stack and the heap. You create a class, it's a reference type, it goes on the heap. A record is a reference type, that goes on the heap as well. A struct is a value type, and a value type goes on the stack. Data that's stored on the heap needs to be garbage collected, reclaimed, and when it's no longer referenced, removed from memory. When it's on the stack, it can get removed from memory much, much quicker. Okay? It doesn't have to go through a garbage collection process. When it's no longer used, it's gone. Right? It just unwinds that level of the stack, and it's no longer available. Easy to see and work with when things are on the stack. So if we want to optimize for performance, If we can shift things from the heap to the stack, it's going to run much faster. Okay? Now, faster is once again relative. I don't want people to think I need to put everything in as structs. No. Faster is relative to the sense of I'm running tens of thousands of these things. You're not allocating as much memory for those. You want to be using the stack as much as possible. There are larger objects you can't put on the stack. They need to be on the heap. These rules have been defined for defining and using structs. Constructor must be defined that configures all properties and fields. Parameterless constructor is not allowed. When you create a struct, you must define all of the values that are being assigned in the struct. Instance fields and properties cannot be assigned in their declaration, so you can't initialize a property or a field with a value. No finalizers are allowed. A struct cannot inherit from another type, but it can implement interfaces. Now, I thought I had another one in here that said that we should keep our structs below 16K. I don't see it. Yeah, when should I use a struct instead of a class? There we go. So, I defined a struct here called rectangle. Sure, it's a shape, easy to understand. It's got a length and a width, and we're assigning the properties length and width right there in the constructor. It's also got a read-only property called depth. Well, it's more of a field. And depth, I just set to date, time, now, minute. So if I wanted to make a rectangle that had some depth, that's a rectangular prism at that point, but whatever. So there's my properties length and width. I also have properties of my rectangle like area and perimeter with those formulas defined right there for me. So I define my rectangle and I get some properties that about that rectangle defined for me right away. So if I create a new rectangle with length of 2 and a width of 5, I get length 2, width 5. I get an area of 10. That makes, 2 by 5, 10. And a perimeter of 14. And depth was that value of this assigned right from the get-go here, right? That should not have been... Oh, that's a static. And we get 40. All right. So if I define a struct for phone number, I'm going to add a country code, enum up top here. It has a country code, an exchange, and a number. And I'll assign those properties. And here's the properties for those right here. I can then reference Jenny's phone number. Of course, Jenny is in the United States at 867-5309. All right. Those are fine examples. And it's easy to see that a struct looks and behaves like a class. Now, to answer the question that we just got that absolutely everybody asks all the time, when should I use a struct instead of a class? This is, you'll hear .NET developers when they get ready to tune for performance, where can we start swapping in structs? Build with classes by default. Don't optimize early. Don't do premature optimization. You're gonna go a little nutty trying to convert things from structs and back again. Use a struct instead of a class if these are all true about the type that you're working with. It's small and going to be short-lived in memory. It represents a single value, can be represented in 16 bytes or less. That way it's nice and small, right? And you can, when it gets kicked off the stack, no problem. It will not be changed and is immutable, right? A struct cannot be changed once it's been defined. If it's never changing, make it a struct, okay? And you will not be converting it to a class. So if you take a struct, right, we had that rectangle. If we need to convert that into a class so we can modify it for some reason, right? I don't know. Maybe, right, maybe you're building some sort of drawing application and you want to take that rectangle and you want to extrude it so that you turn it into that rectangular prism. And you want to maybe put patterns and things on it to change the colors of the sides, apply shaders to it, right? You're modifying it. Well, you're turning it from a struct then into a class so you can modify it and change it. That process is called boxing and unboxing. That is processor and memory intensive. Once again, relatively speaking, when we're talking about small amounts of memory, it's relatively intensive and will, over time, impact your application. Let's put it that way. Now, before I get to the next bit about stopping and skipping loops, we're also going to talk about initializing collections, and then we're going to talk about dictionaries. Let me go back to chat, catch up here. Is try-parse case sensitive? All of C# is case sensitive. When would you use a tuple? I like to use tuples just when I'm value tuples, particularly when I'm initially sketching out types. I don't know what the type's going to look like. I don't know what the return type from a method's going to look like. I don't know if I need to allocate a view model for something. So as I'm just sketching out what an API might look like, I like to use tuples then, just because it doesn't force me to go into another file or another class somewhere to maintain the properties of it. I can just real quick define a tuple, comma, comma, comma. Here's the various parts of it, and done. There, once I know what shape it's supposed to be, then I'll replace it with a struct or a class appropriately. Websites built using Blazor can be deployed in shared hosting. You betcha, delete. They can even be deployed in static hosting. Both of those websites that I showed earlier today, the hats.csharpfritz.com website and cliptalk.com, both run on static websites. There is no server-side code running on either of those. There's some Azure functions running in a serverless application, but there is no server-side code running. What is the size of the heap? I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to go look it up. What would struct supporting then if it doesn't have properties? No, it does have properties. You initialize the properties. You can have fields, yes. Can a class inherit a struct? No. I did dox Jenny. You're right. You're right, One Punch Mac on Twitch. I doxed Jenny. Sorry. Who looks like Jack Black? No. I don't have the hair for Jack. If you want to optimize for perf with structs, you probably need to look at read-only structs. Yeah. The area is immutable. Well, hang on. The area is a read-only property. That's not immutable. That's just a read-only property that, right? It's returning a value, right? And I could certainly use a fat arrow notation for that, right? To define that. It's the same thing. But it's not immutable. It's just a read-only property. So, have a good one, Carl Codes. Good to see you. Int is 4 bytes. Yes. So if you're storing more than 4 ints, you may want to consider. That's a rule. That's a guideline, not a rule. Right? Nothing. You may say 32 bytes. So these guidelines came out of, and I'll open that up here, the choosing between a class and struct guidelines that are out here in the docs. And that was last updated in 2008. All right. So you're welcome to check that out. There's a link right there in the notebook for you to follow through. Yes, they're computed properties, so they're read-only. What should be immutable in structs? The entire struct is immutable. You can't change it. I can't go into Jenny's number here. Say Jenny's number dot number equals 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? All right, it let me do that. I thought. Hang on. No, if you want it faster, you make it an immutable struct. right? Is it immutable struct? No. Read-only struct. That's what I'm thinking. Right, and now these... Yeah. These need to be read-only. Which then... should break that. There we go. Yeah, I thought I made them read-only. Get rid of the sets. There we go. Can't assign it. So, and that forces it to be immutable, and yeah. I didn't put a set on there. Come here. You're gonna go back on there, and you're gonna go back over there, and now it works. So, all right. Yeah, main reason for picking structs in ASP.NET was to avoid allocations. Not only that, there are other tricks you can pull with some other types in the .NET framework. In the .NET base class library called memory of T and span of T that put strings in memory, and you pass around just a pointer to those. That avoids the allocations entirely and passing around and reallocating things. Because when you think about how a web server works, web server passes around a lot of strings that indicate the various protocols and things that you're working with. Well, if we can minimize those allocations, drive those allocations as close to 0 as possible, your web server is going to run faster because it's not constantly reallocating memory. And that's a lot of what the ASP.NET team did. You can start and skip loops. So we talked about loops a couple episodes ago. Of course, we have things like a for block here. Well, you can stop by issuing the break command. So let's go from 1 to 10 million, and we will stop when we get to 10. So if I%10 equals 0, so if it's a multiple of 10, stop. And there it is. To 10, it stops. We can skip iterations using the continue keyword. So if I mod 3 equals 0, so for multiples of 3, skip, don't display, and when we get to 10, stop. So if we run that, I get 1, 2, 4, notice it skipped 3, 5, 7, skipped 6, 8, 10, it skipped 9 with the continue keyword. So those are loops, skipping and stopping. We can initialize collections also. So we can start our Fibonacci array by defining it like this with our values in parentheses. We can also do that with arrays, lists, and the various dictionary types. We can initialize using this syntax. If we have a two-dimensional array, we just specify with the collection with each one of the elements inside of a set of curly braces outside of it. List and dictionary types get the same capabilities here. So if we have a list of rectangles, we have new rectangle, new rectangle, new rectangle inside of curly braces. Okay. And same thing with new list up here, right? Just those strings, and there's our rectangles. Dictionaries the same way, except each one of the elements key value pair inside of curly braces. So there we go. There's our key value pairs for a dictionary. Now the question that we got earlier in the series that I wanted to make sure we addressed was dictionary types. Now, and this still doesn't look right here. I tried to get this formatted right. There it is. There are 4 dictionary types in .NET, and we talked about hash table and dictionary. The other 2, concurrent dictionary and immutable dictionary, we didn't touch on, but we had a question about when should you use those, what are so good about those, and it just so happens that last night, David Fowler, the .NET engineering team architect, he wrote a series of tweets about it, and I linked to the tweets right here, where he mentions the value that came out of a conversation he had with Stephen Taub who's the architect for the .NET libraries. He's also the author of async await and the task parallel library that you use in .NET since .NET 3.5. And those 4 types we saw previously: hash table. It's the most efficient dictionary type with keys organized by hashes of their values. And David says there's good read speed, same weight of using these as a dictionary, but it's more expensive to mutate, to change the hash table, and you can't have generic types with a hash table. So we can go through and put a couple things in that hash table, and there they are. Okay. A dictionary, the generic dictionary, it's the object that you can search easily with keys, and David says that that's lightweight to create a dictionary. Lightweight to create, has a medium update speed, and the read speed can be poor if you wrap the dictionary with a lock because you want to support multi-threading, multiple threads being able to interact with that dictionary at the same time. We'll talk about, I think we're going to need to talk about multi-threading and locking in a future stream here. As an immutable object, the dictionary has the best read speed, and it can be heavy to update. So if you take this dictionary and you mark it as a read-only property or a read-only field and don't let anybody modify it, it's going to be tricky to update and reassign it to put it back where folks can interact with it. But you're going to be able to do all the things to add, update, and remove things from it easily. So if I created a read-only, right, if I make this dictionary object read-only, well, there's my values. Now, making it read-only just means that I can't replace the value in the property. I can't put a new dictionary in there, right? It's going to throw an error if I say read-only dictionary equals new dictionary string, right? That's an error. That's you can't put a new value into a read-only field. But I can add items to that existing dictionary, okay? So it's read-only that you can't replace it on the property, but you can add and update contents of it. The next one is the concurrent dictionary. Now, concurrent dictionary is the first of the 2 thread-safe dictionaries. These are dictionaries that are great to work with if you're multi-threading. And when you think about ASP.NET and building a web server, you're going to create some sort of a collection of things to look up, like headers on a request or a response, and you want to look through that quickly. Dictionaries are going to be what you're going to use. And a concurrent dictionary, or the one that we'll see next, the immutable dictionary, are the preferred ways to do it because it's thread safe. So that means that it's supported for interaction with multiple threads. We do not recommend you use this in a single-threaded application because there is a lot of extra overhead involved with creating those techniques, those tools and methods that allow you to interact with the underlying collection in a thread-safe way. David says it's got poor read speed, no locking required, but more allocations are required to update a concurrent dictionary than a regular dictionary. And that kind of speaks to when you need this feature, when you need multi-threading capabilities, a concurrent dictionary is going to be appropriate for that scenario because you're optimizing for all those folks that are making requests into it at the same time. So instead of adding, updating, and getting values from it, you're going to use try add, try update, and try get value to interact with it. So I just wrote a little sample here that has add or update. So I'm going to add the key value pair, key1 value 1, and if that value already exists, I have a method here that's defined that says, well, then take in the key and the old value, and we're going to assign the value of value 2. So I'll do that, and so I add or update key1 value 1, and I get key1 value 1. It updates it to value 2 in the second line here. You see value 2 is allocated with key1 value 2 there. And then I call try add key2 value 1, and I get that value. If I call try add a second time, it displays true, I was successful at adding it, false, I wasn't successful at adding it. That's okay because it's already there in my collection. So try add or update, get or add is also out there. So get this value or add it to the dictionary if it's not already there. All right. Now the immutable dictionary, see, that didn't format right. This one, go away. Let's fix that. There we go. The immutable dictionary is a new type in .NET Core and .NET 5.6 that is a read-only version of the dictionary. Changing its contents, which you can do, it involves the creation of a brand new dictionary object, copying its contents into it, and returning it. Read speed is poor, no locking is required, but more allocations are required to update this than a regular dictionary. So this feels kind of weird, but in order for me to create an immutable dictionary, I have to create a builder of the specified types that I want, add the values, and return it. I am almost out of time here. There was a bit here about constants and statics. I'm going to leave that to you to go through. Let me wrap things up. Oh my goodness, I went over on time here. Let me come back over. Are you kidding? There we go. And head back over here. Thank you so much. Those of you that are watching on Learn TV, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm going to take a quick look at the rest of chat here, see if there's anything I can cover before we wrap things up. You think he was talking about the read-only dictionary class? Maybe. Maybe he was. So, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate you joining me for another C# with CSharpFritz. We covered a lot. There's so much content out there. I hope you go and check out the GitHub collection, the GitHub notebook collection. Let me go to that. Nuts. And copy that link in so you can find that. But I'm out of time. I will be back next week. And we're going to be talking about interfaces and error handling next week. And I'm going to get on the schedule coming up here. That multi-threading session. I'm going to get something out there for that. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope you have a great day. Check out some of the great content we have on the .NET channel, youtube.com/.net. Of course, you can check out other videos in this playlist, C# with CSharpFritz, over on the YouTube channel. All of my videos, all of the sessions from this discussion is over there. You can check them out. And there's great comments. I answer all the comments that come through on those videos, and hopefully get you pointed in the right direction so that you're successful with .NET. Those of you that are over on Twitch, it's time for a raid. It's time for a raid. Let me see who else is streaming on the big Twitch TV network. We're going to get you connected with another tech streamer over here on Twitch. Taking a look around the horn here. That's me. That's me. I don't want to raid me. That's me. Oh my goodness. You know what? A friend, he's a Microsoft MVP. He's 3D printing right now. I'm going to send you over there. The Microsoft Developer Channel is doing an IoT stream, but a friend of ours who it looks like he might be writing code. He's working, he says. No, let's send you over to Microsoft Developer. I don't think he's actually expecting folks to stop by. If you want, I'll drop the link here for lucky number 11 was where I was thinking of sending, but I'm not going to send you over there. I'm going to send you over to Microsoft Developer, and they're doing IoT this month. IoT for beginners. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you joining me. I'll be back on Twitch tomorrow over on my channel, twitch.tv/CSharpFritz, and we'll be talking about more building apps with Blazor. I hope you tune in then. Otherwise, a little bit later today, our friends from the .NET Docs team will be here talking to you about documentation, building things better with .NET, and I think Mads has the Visual Studio office hours a little bit later today. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.